The lecture hall was massive, built to accommodate students of every size and shape imaginable. Gina sat in her assigned seat, smaller than most of the chairs around her, and watched as Instructor Thalen moved across the platform. He was impressive to look at. His forearms moved with perfect coordination, each one holding a different weapon. His species, the Vryn, were known across the galaxy as the greatest warriors. Nobody argued with that fact. Today we discuss the myth of dual wielding, Thalen announced, his voice carrying easily through the hall. Many young warriors believe they can simply pick up two weapons and become twice as deadly. This is foolish thinking. Gina leaned forward in her seat. She had been waiting for this lesson. Combat theory was her favorite class, even though Thalen often used humans as examples of weaker species. She told herself it was educational. She told herself not to take it personally. Thalen activated the holographic display. Images of various species appeared, rotating slowly in the air. True combat with multiple weapons requires something specific. It requires a brain that can process independent commands to each limb simultaneously. Most bipedal species possess only a single brain with bilateral symmetry. Do you know what this means? A student from the Nasith species raised one of her many arms. Her name was Terra, and she always had the right answers. It means both sides of the body receive similar commands, Instructor. They mirror each other. Correct, Thalen said, nodding his approval. The left hand knows what the right hand is doing because the same brain controls both. They cannot act independently with true efficiency. This is a biological limitation. Gina felt her jaw tighten. She had heard this argument before, but hearing it in an official academy setting made it different, made it feel like law. Thalen continued, now displaying an image of a human skeleton. Gina recognized it immediately. She had seen the same image in her medical texts. Humans are a perfect example of this limitation. Their brain is divided into two hemispheres, yes, but these hemispheres communicate constantly. They work together, not independently. When a human attempts to use two weapons, one hand is always dominant. The other merely supports. This is not true dual wielding. This is assisted combat at best. Bolok, a Vryn student who sat 3 rows ahead of Gina, spoke up without raising his hand. Then how do humans compensate, Instructor? They are members of the coalition. They must have some value in combat. Thalen's expression was difficult to read, but Gina thought she detected something like pity. Humans compensate with technology. They build weapons that think for them, targeting systems, automated defenses, ranged weapons that require minimal skill. They are clever with tools. This is their strength. But in pure combat, blade to blade, they are limited by their biology. The words hit Gina like physical blows. She wanted to stand up and argue. She wanted to prove him wrong right there in the lecture hall. But she had no proof. She had no argument that would not sound like emotion and wounded pride. So she sat quietly and listened as Thalen continued to explain why humans would never be great warriors. After class ended, Gina gathered her things slowly. Other students filed out, talking among themselves about the lesson. She heard Bolok laughing with his friends about something. She tried not to imagine they were laughing about humans. Hana was waiting outside the lecture hall. She was Gina's roommate and one of the other 2 humans at the academy. You look angry, Hana said as they walked together toward the dormitories. I am angry, Gina admitted. Did you hear what he said about us? Everyone heard it. It was broadcast to all the combat theory classes. Hana sighed. Look, Gina, maybe he is right. Maybe we are not meant to be blade fighters. There is no shame in having different strengths. But what if he is wrong? Gina stopped walking and turned to face her friend. What if we have never tried hard enough? What if the only reason we cannot do it is because everyone keeps telling us we cannot? Hana looked concerned now. What are you thinking about doing? I want to try. I want to actually try dual wielding and see if it is really impossible. Gina, don't be stupid. You will just hurt yourself and prove Thalen right. Then all humans will look bad. But Gina was not listening anymore. Her mind was already made up. That evening after dinner, she went to the practice arena. The academy had dozens of these spaces, open to all students at any hour. Most were empty at night. Students preferred to practice during the day when they could show off their skills to each other. Gina walked to the weapon racks and looked at the training swords. They were made of solid metal, but with dulled edges. They could hurt if you got hit, but they would not cut. She picked up one sword with her right hand. It felt comfortable, familiar. She had trained with single sword techniques since arriving at the academy. Then she picked up a second sword with her left hand. The weight felt wrong immediately. Her left hand was weaker. The balance was different. When she tried to move both swords at once, they bumped into each other. She felt clumsy and awkward. She understood exactly what Thalen had meant about assisted combat. Her left hand was just following her right hand, not acting independently. She practiced for an hour, then 2 hours. Her arms began to ache. Her movements did not improve much. By the time she left the arena, she was sweating and frustrated. Maybe Thalen was right. Maybe this was impossible. But she came back the next night, and the night after that. Every evening after classes ended, Gina went to the practice arena and picked up 2 swords. She tried different techniques. She tried moving one sword while keeping the other still. She tried attacking and defending at the same time. She tried patterns from earth martial arts that she remembered from her childhood training. Nothing felt natural. Everything felt forced. Other students began to notice. Some would stop and watch her practice. Nobody said anything encouraging. She saw them whispering to each other. She knew what they were thinking. The human was trying to do something impossible. The human was making a fool of herself. Hana asked her to stop. "You are embarrassing yourself and the rest of us," she said one night. "People are talking about the crazy human who thinks she can dual wield." "Let them talk," Gina replied. Her hands were covered in blisters now. Her shoulders hurt constantly. But something was starting to change. Her movements were getting smoother. Her left hand was beginning to act less like a follower and more like a partner to her right hand. It was small progress. Maybe it was not even real progress. Maybe she was imagining it. But she was not going to stop. Instructor Thalen had said no species with a single bilateral brain could truly dual wield. He had said humans were biologically limited. He had said it was impossible. Gina held both swords and looked at her reflection in the arena's polished floor. She saw a young human woman who was tired and sore, and probably being very foolish. But she also saw someone who was not ready to accept impossible as an answer. 3 weeks passed like a blur of exhaustion and determination. Gina stopped going to the dining hall for breakfast. She needed that extra hour of practice. She stopped attending the social gatherings that Hana invited her to. Every free moment was spent in the practice arena with 2 swords in her hands. Her body was changing. Muscles she never knew existed began to ache and then strengthen. Her left arm, always weaker than her right, was developing new definition. Her hands were covered in calluses now instead of blisters. But the most interesting change was happening inside her head. She was starting to think differently about movement. Instead of planning each motion consciously, her body was beginning to react without thought. Her left sword would block while her right sword attacked, and she did not have to tell each hand what to do separately anymore. It was becoming automatic. It was 3 in the morning when Damon found her collapsed on the arena floor. "Gina, are you okay?" He rushed over and helped her sit up. Damon was the 3rd human at the academy, but he studied engineering instead of combat. He was tall and thin, with glasses that he did not really need but wore anyway because he said they helped him focus. "I'm fine," Gina said, but her voice was weak. "Just resting. You passed out." "That's not resting." Damon looked at the 2 swords lying nearby. "How long have you been doing this?" "Every night for 3 weeks. And eating? Sleeping?" Gina did not answer. She did not need to. Damon could see the truth in how thin she had become, how dark the circles under her eyes were. "This is insane," he said. "You are going to hurt yourself permanently." "I'm getting better, though. I can feel it." Gina tried to stand, but her legs were shaking. Damon had to help her. "My brain is learning. It's adapting." Damon was quiet for a moment. Then he said something unexpected. "Actually, that makes sense scientifically." "What do you mean?" "Come on, let me get you some food first. Then I will explain." They went to the 24-hour food dispensary near the dormitories. Damon insisted that Gina eat 2 full meals. While she ate, he pulled up information on his data pad. "I have been researching human neuroplasticity," he said. "Do you know what that is?" Gina shook her head. "It means our brains can change and adapt based on what we do. Other species have more fixed neural pathways. Their brains are optimized for specific tasks from birth. But human brains are different. We are not born optimized for anything specific. Instead, we can learn and adapt to almost anything." He showed her diagrams and research papers. Gina tried to follow along, but she was so tired that the words seemed to swim on the screen. What I'm saying is this, Damon continued. Instructor Thalen is right that humans are not born with the ability to dual wield. But he is wrong that we cannot develop it. Our brains can literally build new pathways through practice. You are not trying to do something impossible. You are trying to do something that has never been done before. That's different. For the first time in weeks, Gina felt hope that was not just stubborn determination. So you think I can actually do this? I think if any species can learn to do something they are not naturally built for, it would be humans. Damon smiled. But you need to train smarter, not just harder. You are going to kill yourself at this rate. They spent the rest of the night designing a training program. Damon researched Earth martial arts traditions and found records of sword techniques from Korea, Japan, China, and Europe. Some of these cultures had developed dual-wielding methods thousands of years ago. They were not perfect, but they were a starting point. Your ancestors figured out some of this already, Damon said excitedly. You don't have to invent everything from nothing. Over the next few days, they worked together every evening. Damon would watch Gina practice and take notes. He measured her reaction times, her accuracy, her endurance. He created charts showing her improvement. The progress was real and measurable. Other students continued to notice. The whispers grew louder. Some were mocking, but others seemed curious. A few students from other species started watching from the arena entrance, though none of them approached. Then Commander Eulith showed up. She was the Academy's human liaison officer, responsible for the 3 human students enrolled there. She was older, maybe 50, with gray hair cut short and scars on her hands that suggested she had seen real combat. She found Gina and Damon in the practice arena one evening. I have been hearing interesting reports about you two, Eulith said without introduction. Something about trying to prove Instructor Thalen wrong? Gina froze. She expected to be reprimanded. Instead, Eulith smiled. May I see what you have learned? Gina demonstrated her techniques. She moved through the forms that Damon had helped her develop, combining ancient earth sword methods with her own discoveries. Her movements were far from perfect, but they were also far better than they had been 3 weeks ago. Eulith watched in silence. When Gina finished, the commander nodded slowly. Do you know about the First Contact War? Eulith asked. A little bit, Gina said. That was when humans first joined the coalition, right? There was some fighting. Some fighting, Eulith repeated with a dark laugh. That's one way to describe it. It was a bloodbath. The coalition species thought humans would be easy to defeat. We had inferior technology, no experience with space combat, and we were biologically weaker than most species. But we won, Damon said. We survived, Eulith corrected. And the reason we survived is because we adapted faster than anyone expected. Human soldiers learned alien tactics in weeks that should have taken years. We modified our bodies, our weapons, our strategies. The coalition had never seen anything like it. They thought we were cheating somehow, but we were just being human. Eulith walked over to the weapon rack and picked up 2 swords. She held them in a ready stance that looked completely natural. I learned to dual wield during that war. It was not pretty or traditional, but it worked because I needed it to work. The coalition still does not officially recognize it as a valid technique for humans. They say our biology makes it impossible. Why? Gina asked. If you can do it, why doesn't everyone know? Politics. Eulith set down the swords. The coalition maintains certain narratives about each species. Humans are the tool users, the engineers, the clever ones who win with technology. If they admit we can also be warriors who master techniques through pure determination, it changes the political balance. Some species would find that threatening. Damon looked uncomfortable. Are you saying the Academy is lying about human limitations? I'm saying the Academy teaches the official coalition position. Instructor Thalen believes what he teaches because it is what he has been taught. He is not malicious. He is just wrong. Eulith turned to Gina. What you are doing is important, but you need to understand the consequences. If you succeed, you will not just prove one instructor wrong. You will challenge decades of official policy. I don't care about politics, Gina said. I just want to prove we can do this. Then you need to be smarter about how you proceed. Right now, you are training in public, letting everyone see your progress. That means when you finally challenge the official position, they will be prepared to shut you down. Eulith thought for a moment. There are other ways to prove your point. Ways that would be harder to dismiss. What do you mean? Damon asked. But Eulith was already walking toward the exit.
Keep training.
Get better. When the time is right, an opportunity will present itself. And Gina, start eating regular meals again. A warrior who collapses from hunger proves nothing. After she left, Gina and Damon looked at each other. That was strange, Damon said. That was helpful, Gina corrected. She picked up her swords again, feeling their weight differently now. She was not just practicing anymore. She was preparing for something bigger than she had imagined. Her brain was changing. Her body was adapting. She was becoming something that the galaxy said was impossible. She was becoming a human dual wielder. The confiscation happened on a Tuesday morning. Gina arrived at the practice arena as usual, but found Instructor Thalen waiting for her with 2 security officers. Her training swords were in his upper right hand. These weapons are Academy property, Thalen said formally. I am confiscating them and officially prohibiting you from dual weapon practice. Gina felt her face grow hot. On what grounds? On the grounds that you are training in a manner that contradicts established safety protocols. Dual wielding is not an approved technique for human students. Continuing this practice puts you at risk of injury and potentially damages the Academy's reputation. I have not injured myself. I have not damaged anything. Not yet. Thalen's 4 eyes looked at her without anger, but also without sympathy. Miss Park, I understand your enthusiasm, but enthusiasm without wisdom is dangerous. Your biology limits what you can achieve with bladed weapons. This is not an insult. It is simply fact. The sooner you accept this, the sooner you can focus on developing your actual strengths. The security officers escorted Gina out of the arena. She went back to her dormitory room and found Hana studying at her desk. I told you this would happen, Hana said quietly. He is wrong. Maybe. But he is also the instructor. What are you going to do now? Gina did not answer immediately. She sat on her bed and tried to think clearly through her frustration. Thalen had taken her training swords, but there were other weapons in the Academy. Other places to practice. She just had to be smarter about it. That evening, Damon came to find her. He looked excited and nervous at the same time. I heard about what happened with Thalen. I am sorry. It's fine. I will find another way. Actually, I might have found it for you. Damon glanced around to make sure nobody was listening. Have you ever heard of the Gray Rings? Gina shook her head. They are unofficial combat circles in the lower levels of the Academy. Students go there to fight matches that are not exactly legal. No instructors, no official rules. Just warriors testing themselves against each other. Why would I want to fight in illegal matches? Because in the Gray Rings, nobody cares what the official Academy policy says. If you can fight, you fight. And if you win, people notice. Damon pulled up a map on his datapad. There is a match scheduled for tomorrow night. I already asked around. You can challenge anyone who shows up. Who did you ask? People, I have contacts. Damon looked embarrassed. I fix equipment for students sometimes. And they tell me things. Gina thought about it. Fighting in unauthorized matches could get her expelled. But then again, she was already prohibited from training the way she wanted. What did she have to lose? I'll do it, she said. But I need a second. Someone to stand with me and confirm the match is fair. Hana, who had been listening from her desk, sighed heavily. You are both going to get expelled, you know that? Probably, Gina agreed. Fine, I will be your second. Someone needs to keep you from getting killed down there. The next night, the 3 humans descended into the lower levels of the Academy. These corridors were older, built when the station was first constructed. The lighting was dimmer. The air smelled like recycled metal. They followed Damon's directions through several turns until they found a large cargo bay that had been converted into a makeshift arena. About 50 students were already there, representing at least a dozen different species. Most of them stared when the humans entered. Gina recognized some faces from her classes, but none of them had ever spoken to her before. A large Vryn warrior stood in the center of the space. It was Bolok, the student who always sat near the front of Thalen's class. He was examining a set of 4 practice blades. I want to challenge him, Gina said quietly to Damon. Are you insane? He is one of Thalen's best students. Exactly. If I beat him, it means something. Hana grabbed Gina's arm. Listen to yourself. You have been training for a few weeks. He has been training his entire life. This is suicide. But Gina was already walking toward the center of the ring. The crowd grew quiet as she approached Bolok. I challenge you to a dual weapon match, Gina announced loudly enough for everyone to hear. Bolok turned to look at her. His four eyes blinked in what might have been surprise or amusement. You are the human who has been practicing alone in the arena. The one Thalen prohibited from dual-wielding. That's me. Then you cannot be serious. Instructor Thalen is correct about human limitations. I would hurt you badly. I'm willing to take that risk if you are willing to accept my challenge. The crowd was murmuring now. Gina heard words like foolish and brave and entertaining in various languages. Nobody seemed to think she had any chance of winning. That was fine. She did not need them to believe in her. She just needed them to watch. Bolok considered for a long moment. Then he lowered one pair of his arms and picked up only 2 swords, leaving the other pair empty. I will fight you with only 2 blades to make it fair. Choose your weapons. It was meant to be an insult. Fighting a Vryn warrior with only half his weapons should have been embarrassing. But Gina just nodded and walked to the weapon rack. She selected 2 training swords that felt balanced in her hands. They were not her confiscated blades, but they would work. Hana stood at the edge of the ring as Gina's second. Bolok's second was another Vryn student named Torin. The 2 seconds confirmed that the match would be to first blood or submission. No killing strikes allowed, though injuries were expected. Ready? Torin asked. Both fighters nodded. Begin. Bolok moved first, and he moved fast. Even with only 2 of his arms engaged, he was incredibly quick. His blades came at Gina from high and low simultaneously. She barely managed to block both strikes, her swords ringing against his with sharp metallic sounds. He pressed forward, attacking relentlessly. Gina gave ground, defending desperately. Her technique was working, her blades moving independently to block his attacks, but she was not fast enough to counterattack. She was only surviving. The crowd was silent now, watching intently. Gina could feel their eyes on her, could sense their expectations. The human was losing, just as everyone knew she would. Bolok increased his speed. His strikes came faster and harder. Gina's arms were beginning to tire. One of his blows got through her defense and struck her shoulder. Not hard enough to draw blood, but hard enough to send pain shooting down her arm. She stumbled back, and Bolok prepared his finishing strike. Both his swords raised for a simultaneous overhead attack that would force Gina to submit, or be hit hard. And then something shifted in Gina's mind. She stopped trying to fight the way she thought she should fight. She stopped trying to match Bolok's Vryn technique. Instead, she did something that came from pure human instinct. As Bolok brought his swords down, Gina dropped into a low spin, her body rotating close to the ground. It was a move from ancient Korean sword dancing, something she had practiced as a child but never thought of as combat technique. Her 2 blades extended outward as she spun, and one of them caught Bolok across the back of his leg. It was not a deep cut, but it was enough to draw blood. Bolok stopped his attack and looked down at his leg in surprise. The crowd erupted in shocked exclamations. Torin stepped forward to examine the cut and then raised his hand. First blood to the human, match to Park Gina. The cargo bay was absolutely silent for 3 heartbeats. Then someone started clapping. Then someone else. Within seconds, half the crowd was applauding while the other half stood in stunned disbelief. Gina stood up slowly, her legs shaking from exhaustion and adrenaline. She had won. She had actually won. Bolok approached her and extended one of his arms in the Vryn gesture of respect. That was not a technique I have ever seen before. Where did you learn it? I didn't learn it from any combat instructor, Gina said honestly. It was something from Earth, from my culture. Then perhaps Instructor Thalen is not entirely correct about human limitations. Bolok smiled, which looked strange on his alien face. I would like to train with you sometime if you're willing to teach me that spinning technique. I would like that, Gina said. As she left the gray ring with Daman and Hana, Gina felt different. She had proven something tonight, not just to the other students, but to herself. She could fight. She could win. And she could do it by being human. Not by trying to be something else, but she also knew this was just the beginning. Word of her victory would spread through the academy. Eventually, it would reach Instructor Thalen. And when it did, there would be consequences that she could not yet predict. The summons came 3 days after Gina's victory in the Gray Ring. An official message appeared on her datapad during breakfast. She was to appear before the Academy Council at noon to answer for participating in unauthorized combat matches. Hana and Damon received similar messages for their involvement. "This is bad," Hana said, staring at her own summons. "They are going to expel us." "Maybe," Gina replied calmly. She had been expecting this. "Or maybe they will have to admit that I won a fair fight using dual-wielding techniques." "They don't have to admit anything. They make the rules." Damon pushed his food around his plate nervously. "Commander Ulith might speak for us." She seemed supportive before. At exactly noon, the three humans entered the grand arena. Gina had never been inside this space before. It was enormous, with seating for thousands of spectators. Today only the council section was occupied. 7 beings sat in elevated chairs, representing the major species of the coalition. At the center sat Council Chair Verath, an Eldon who was rumored to be over 300 years old. Instructor Thalen stood to one side, his 4 arms crossed in a posture that suggested displeasure. On the other side stood Commander Ulith in her formal uniform. Park Gina, student of the Galactic Combat Academy. Verath's voice was surprisingly gentle for such a serious situation. "You are accused of participating in unauthorized combat exercises. You are also accused of deliberately disobeying a direct instruction from your combat instructor. How do you respond to these accusations?"
Gina stepped forward.
Her heart was pounding, but she kept her voice steady. "I participated in a voluntary sparring match in an unofficial training area. I did not disobey any academy rules. The prohibition against dual-wielding is not an official rule. It was a personal instruction from Instructor Thalen." Thalen's eyes narrowed. "The personal instruction of a master instructor carries the weight of academy authority. Then perhaps academy authority needs to be questioned," Gina said. Several of the council members shifted in their seats. "With respect, Instructor Thalen prohibited me from dual-wielding, based on the belief that it is biologically impossible for humans. I proved that belief wrong. I defeated a skilled Vryn warrior using dual-weapon techniques that I developed myself. You defeated a student who was using only half of his natural weapons," Thalen countered. "This proves nothing except that Bolok was being generous with a weaker opponent. Bolok chose to use 2 weapons to match my fighting style. That was his decision. The match was fair and witnessed by dozens of students." Verath raised a hand for silence. "Instructor Thalen, you have taught at this academy for many decades. Your expertise is not questioned, but the council must consider all perspectives. Commander Ulith, you have been observing this situation. What is your assessment?" Ulith stepped forward. "Council Chair, I have reviewed recordings of Park Gina's training and her match against the Vryn student. I have also researched human neuroplasticity and our species' historical development of combat techniques. My assessment is that humans are capable of developing dual-wielding skills through dedicated practice. This ability is not instinctive, but it can be learned. Learned skills are not the same as natural abilities," Thalen argued. "A human who trains for months to achieve basic dual-wielding will always be inferior to a species with innate multi-weapon coordination. This is not prejudice. This is biological reality, is it?" Ulith pulled up a holographic display. "During the First Contact War, human soldiers developed combat techniques that coalition strategists claimed were impossible. We adapted to zero-gravity fighting in weeks. We learned to pilot alien spacecraft with unfamiliar controls. We survived battles against species with superior physical attributes. We did not win because we were stronger or faster or more naturally coordinated. We won because we refused to accept biological limitations as permanent restrictions." The council members were listening carefully now. Verath leaned forward in his chair. "This is a fascinating debate about human potential, but we are here to address a disciplinary matter. Park Gina violated the spirit of Academy protocol by fighting in the Grey Rings. This cannot be ignored." "Then allow me to propose a solution," Verath continued. His ancient eyes looked at Gina with something that might have been curiosity or amusement. "Park Gina claims she has proven that humans can dual-wield effectively. Instructor Thalen maintains that her victory was a product of specific circumstances and does not represent genuine capability. There is a traditional way to resolve such disagreements." Gina felt her stomach tighten. She knew what was coming next. "A formal duel," Verath announced. "Park Gina will face Instructor Thalen himself in combat. If she can land a single clean strike against him within a 3-minute period, the Council will officially recognize dual-wielding as a valid combat form for human students. The prohibition will be lifted and her record will be cleared of any disciplinary action." "And if I fail?" Gina asked. If you fail, you will be expelled from the academy. Furthermore, the Council will officially classify humans as unsuitable for dual-weapon disciplines across all Coalition institutions. This classification will remain in effect for at least 20 years. The weight of those words settled over the arena like a physical presence. Gina was not just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for every human who might want to study combat in the future. Thalen spoke up. Council Chair, I must object. I am a master instructor with over 40 years of combat experience. This human has trained for barely 2 months. The match will not be fair. Life is not fair, Instructor. War is not fair. If humans wish to claim they can overcome their biological limitations through determination and adaptability, then let them prove it against a true master. Varath turned back to Gina. You have 1 week to prepare. The duel will take place in this arena, and it will be broadcast throughout the academy. Do you accept these terms? Gina thought about refusing. The smart thing to do would be to accept expulsion and go home to Earth. She had already proven something to herself. She had won 1 fight. That should be enough. But then she thought about every human who would come to this academy in the future. She thought about all the times people had told her species that they were limited, weak, unsuited for certain things. She thought about Commander Uleth's story of the First Contact War. Of humans who survived impossible odds by refusing to accept what everyone else said was impossible. I accept, Gina said. The council chamber erupted in whispered conversations. Varath struck his staff against the floor 3 times, calling for silence. Then it is decided. 7 days from now we will witness this trial of blades. Council dismissed. As the council members filed out, Thalen approached Gina. His expression was difficult to read. I want you to understand something, he said quietly. This duel is not personal. I bear you no ill will, but I cannot allow false hope to spread through the academy. If humans believe they can do things they are not built for, they will hurt themselves chasing impossible goals. I will fight you with my full skill to prove this point, not to hurt you but to protect your species from harmful delusions. I understand, Gina said, but I'm going to prove you wrong anyway. Thalen nodded slowly, then walked away. Damon and Hannah rushed to Gina's side as soon as the instructor was gone. Are you insane? Hannah demanded. He is going to destroy you. He is one of the greatest warriors in the entire coalition. Probably, Gina agreed. But I have 1 week to prepare, and I have something Thalen doesn't expect. What's that? Damon asked. I have the fact that I'm human. I adapt, I learn. I find ways to win even when logic says I should lose. Gina looked up at the empty council seats. 1 clean strike. That's all I need. I just have to land 1 hit on him in 3 minutes. That's impossible, Hannah said. Gina smiled. People keep using that word. I don't think it means what they think it means. Commander Uleth was waiting outside the arena. She fell into step beside Gina as the 3 humans walked back toward their dormitory. You have courage, Uleth said. Possibly more courage than sense, but courage nonetheless. I will help you prepare. We have 7 days to find a weakness in Thalen's technique. Does he have any weaknesses? Damon asked. Everyone has weaknesses. The question is whether we can find his before time runs out. Uleth smiled grimly. Welcome to the hardest week of your life, Park Gina. Let's make sure it's not your last week at this academy. The week passed faster than Gina thought possible. Every waking moment was dedicated to preparation. Commander Uleth drilled her relentlessly, showing her recordings of Thalen's past demonstrations and competitions. They studied his patterns, his preferences, his timing. He always opens with high strikes from his upper arms, Uleth explained during one session. He uses his lower arms for defense and positioning. Most opponents try to attack his lower arms because they seem like easier targets. This is a mistake. His lower arms are actually his strongest. Damon built a training program that simulated fighting against a 4-armed opponent. It was not perfect, but it helped Gina practice defending against attacks from multiple angles simultaneously. Hannah helped by attacking Gina randomly throughout the day, keeping her reflexes sharp and her awareness constant. Other students heard about the upcoming duel. Some came to watch Gina train. A few offered advice or encouragement. Bullock visited the training arena and spent an evening helping Gina understand Vryn combat philosophy. We are taught that more weapons mean more options, Bullock explained. But this also means more choices to make in every moment. When you fight with only 2 swords, you have fewer options but faster decisions. This can be an advantage if you use it correctly. The night before the duel, Gina sat alone in the empty practice arena. Her 2 training swords lay across her lap. Her body was as ready as it would ever be. Her mind was calm. She had done everything possible to prepare. She thought about Instructor Thalen's words. He believed he was protecting humanity by proving their limitations. He was not evil. He was not even cruel. He was just wrong. And tomorrow Gina would have 3 minutes to prove it. The morning of the duel arrived with clear station lighting and recycled air that tasted like metal and anticipation. Gina dressed in simple training clothes. She ate a light breakfast. She did gentle stretches to keep her muscles warm. Then she walked to the grand arena with Hannah and Damon at her sides. The arena was packed. Thousands of students filled the seats, representing dozens of species from across the coalition. Gina saw faces she recognized from her classes and many more she had never seen before. Camera drones floated throughout the space, recording everything. This match was being broadcast to other coalition academies and military stations. Commander Uleth met Gina at the arena entrance. Remember, you do not need to defeat him. You just need to touch him once with a clean strike. Do not try to fight his fight. Fight your fight. Gina nodded and stepped into the center of the arena floor. Instructor Thalen was already waiting. He held 4 ceremonial swords, each one a legendary weapon with its own history and name. He had painted traditional Vryn warrior marks on his face. This was not just a duel for him. This was a ritual defense of everything he had taught for decades. Council Chair Verath stood between them. The terms are clear. Park Gina must land 1 clean strike on Instructor Thalen within 3 minutes. If she succeeds, dual wielding will be recognized as a valid human combat form. If she fails, she will be expelled and humans will be classified as unsuitable for dual weapon training. Are both combatants ready? Ready, Thalen said formally. Gina picked up her 2 training swords from the weapon rack. They were plain and simple compared to Thalen's legendary blades. But they were hers and they felt right in her hands. Ready, she said. Begin. Thalen moved immediately and Gina understood why he was considered one of the greatest warriors alive. His 4 blades came at her from impossible angles, high and low and middle simultaneously. She defended desperately, her 2 swords moving in patterns she had practiced 10,000 times. The crowd was silent except for the sharp sounds of metal striking metal. Gina gave ground steadily, forced backward by the sheer volume of Thalen's attacks. His face was calm and focused. He was not trying to hurt her. He was simply demonstrating the truth as he understood it, that 2 swords could not match 4, that human biology could not overcome Vryn evolution. 30 seconds passed. Gina had not landed a single strike. She had barely managed to defend herself. 1 minute passed. Her arms were beginning to tire. Thalen's attacks were perfectly measured to drain her stamina without causing serious injury. He was winning by attrition, proving that even if she could defend for a while, she could not maintain it for 3 full minutes. 90 seconds. Gina's breathing was becoming labored. She could feel the weight of thousands of watching eyes. The pressure of knowing that every human's future in combat training depended on the next 90 seconds. Thalen increased his speed slightly. His upper swords came down in a matched overhead strike while his lower swords swept inward from both sides. It was the finishing pattern that Uleth had warned Gina about. The attack that had ended dozens of Thalen's previous duels. Gina had practiced defending against this exact combination. She raised both her swords to block the overhead strike, exactly as Thalen expected her to do. But then she did something. Unexpected, she dropped her left sword. The blade clattered to the arena floor with a metallic ring that echoed through the sudden shocked silence. Thalen's attack was already committed. His 4 blades converged on where Gina should have been, where she should have been defending with both swords. Instead, Gina dove forward and down, rolling beneath his strikes. Her single remaining sword was held in a reverse grip against her forearm, hidden from Thalen's view. As she rolled, she grabbed her fallen sword with her left hand from the floor. She came up inside Thalen's guard, closer than any opponent should ever get to a 4-armed warrior. She was too close for him to bring his blades to bear effectively, and in that single moment of surprise, Gina placed both of her swords in a crossed guard position against Thalen's throat. A clean strike. Undeniable. The arena was absolutely silent. Even the camera drones seemed to hang motionless in the air. Thalen stood frozen with his 4 swords extended in attack positions that had missed their target. Gina stood inside his reach with her blades at his throat. Neither of them moved. Then Council Chair Vareth's voice rang out. Match to Park Gina. The terms have been satisfied. The arena exploded in sound. Students from every species were shouting, some in celebration and others in disbelief. Gina slowly lowered her swords and stepped back. Her legs were shaking. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought everyone could hear it. Thalen lowered his 4 swords slowly. His expression was complicated, showing emotions that Gina could not name. Then he did something that silenced the crowd again. He bowed to her. It was a deep, formal bow, the kind a master gives to someone who has taught them something profound. I was wrong, Thalen said clearly, his voice carrying throughout the arena. Not about the biological facts. Humans still do not have the natural neural pathways for dual wielding. But I was wrong about what those facts mean. You did not fight the way a Vryn warrior fights. You fought the way a human fights. And that is something entirely different. He straightened and looked at Gina with what might have been respect or curiosity or both. Tell me, how did you know I would commit to that attack pattern? I didn't know, Gina admitted honestly. I just knew I could not win by defending for 3 minutes. So I had to do something you would not expect. Something that went against every combat principle you taught us. Dropping my sword was stupid and wrong and against every rule of good fighting. But it worked. Because I'm human. We do stupid things sometimes, and sometimes stupid things are the only way to solve impossible problems. Thalen actually smiled at that. I have taught combat for 42 years. I thought I understood everything about blade fighting. Today you showed me I was wrong. Would you be willing to teach me this technique, this human approach to dual wielding? Before Gina could answer, Council Chair Vareth approached. The Council's ruling is now in effect. Dual wielding is officially recognized as a valid combat form for human students. Furthermore, I recommend that the Academy create a new program studying adaptive combat techniques. Instructor Thalen, if you are willing, I would have you and Park Gina lead this program together. The crowd erupted again, louder than before. Students were chanting Gina's name in multiple languages. She saw Hana and Daman pushing through the crowd toward her, both of them crying and laughing at the same time. Commander Uleth appeared at Gina's side. Well done, warrior. Earth military has been watching this match. They are already asking if you would be interested in developing combat training programs when you graduate. I have not graduated yet, Gina said, still trying to process everything that was happening. No, but you have done something more important. You changed what the galaxy thinks is possible. Uleth smiled. That is how humans have always survived. Not by being stronger or faster or more naturally talented, but by refusing to accept limitations as permanent. Over the following months, everything changed. Gina became an assistant instructor, working with Thalen to develop new combat curriculum. Students from multiple species enrolled in the adaptive combat program, learning that biology was not destiny. Each species began discovering their own variations on dual-wielding techniques, adapted to their unique abilities. Damon's research on human neuroplasticity was published and created discussions across coalition scientific communities. Questions about the fixed nature of other species' abilities began.